Joining us now for World Brief and a review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rufin. Good morning, Vimbai.
Good morning,
Rufai.
Morning, Fabi.
Hope you all had a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. It's all right. It was good.
Just okay?
Hi, it was good. It was good.
I was just okay. My weekend was fantastic. I saw the Arsenal ladies are champions of Europe once again. So huge congratulations to the Arsenal ladies. My mummy's in town.
Hey.
And last
Moi, moi.
it's coming.
Yeah.
And last, we had a wonderful wedding yesterday. We went to celebrate with the families of the Abiru. Tukumbo, Abiru's daughter, married into a wonderful Ijebu family. So it's just so much wonder happening this weekend. So huge congratulations to the couple. But let me tell you what is happening around the world. Now, despite the US president talking up the chances of a peace deal for the war in Ukraine, Russia launched the biggest aerial bombardment of the war so far this weekend. Now, at least 12 people were killed, including children, and they were, of course, among the dead. Now, this is as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on allies for more support. Now, just hours before Russia and Ukraine swapped hundreds more prisoners on Sunday, the third and last part of a major exchange that marks the only real tangible income from peace talks that have so far failed to produce a ceasefire. In a rare rebuke, really, US President Donald Trump has threatened Russia with more sanctions after a series of deadly strikes across Ukraine. And speaking of Putin directly, he did say, this is Trump saying, what the hell happened to him, referring to Putin, and referred to Putin as crazy. Now, the US president did appear aghast at the conduct of his Russian counterpart as the Kremlin seems to ebb further and further away from peace. Meanwhile, in Israel and in Gaza, strikes over the past 24 hours have killed at least 38 people in Gaza specifically. Now, health officials in the Palestinian Authority or territory say that this has brought the death toll there to more than 100 in less than 3 days. Israel has intensified its air campaign in Gaza. On Friday, a strike on Khan Yunus destroyed the home of doctors Ala and Hamdi al-Najjar, killing 9 of their 10 children. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces said on Saturday that it had targeted more than 100 sites across the territory over the weekend, despite agencies warning that the Palestinian population is plunging deeper into malnutrition and famine. And for nearly 3 months, Israel has blocked food, fuel, medicine, and all other supplies from entering Gaza, worsening a humanitarian crisis for 2.3 million Palestinians.
Very sad one, Fabi.
Very.
Since the date of the ending of the ceasefire on the 18th of March, ask me how many people Israel has killed. Over 3,700 people. Since this war started on the 7th of October 2023, ask me how many people Israel has killed on that flank. Over 52,000. So if Israel ever makes the assumption and the allegation that, 1,200 Israelis were killed, but in return you killed 52,000 and you're still killing and you'll still kill more, you've decimated Gaza, you've destroyed the infrastructure so much that Trump now has funny ideas in his head, calling the place, real estate on the Riviera. Gaza Riviera real estate. That's how much you've pummeled the land. And what are you doing at this point in time? The United Nations is talking tough. You're not allowing those aid trucks come in as much as possible. Just a fraction, just a smidgen, that's where you're allowed to come in. The 107 trucks that you've allowed to come in since Thursday that the United Nations confirmed is nowhere to be found. Because that's so small based on the problem on ground. Yeah. You're saying you're going to decimate Gaza so much that people will voluntarily evacuate themselves from there. And Israel is doing this. The whole world is looking. Nobody can tame. Britain will just react and say, we're going to stop trade with Israel. Trade that is less than $10 billion. Other parts of the world are just going to talk for a bit. And everybody moves on. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't concern anybody. And people are being killed. And we say we have a sincere world to live in. Concerning the killing of 9 people, the IDF denied it. They said they said children were not there around there. But we can see the killings by the Gaza, health authorities, saying people were actually killed. Moving on to Trump, I am not surprised, but we told him here that Putin would deceive you. Putin is not crazy, with due respect. I never knew that there was going to be a day I was going to defend Putin against Trump. Putin is smart, but you are the crazy one. You have all the intelligence and dossier to make you know that Putin is cunning, he's a former KGB official, but you still go ahead thinking you're going to do a peace deal. So when he starts to buy time and batter everybody in aerial bombardment, you are saying to Putin that, oh, he's going to regret it if he wants to take every part of Ukraine. The first deal Putin put forward to take over Donbass wasn't a sizable part of Ukraine. But you were so concerned, President Trump, about your minerals deal. So once you sided, that was all of it.
Exactly.
So you see, we don't have a fair world at all. Most of the talks have stalled. Putin is having a free reign. You are not giving them equipment any longer. You stalled a lot of equipment sale to them and equipment grants to them. How do you want them to fight fairly? Are you the leader of the free world? And now you're saying he's crazy? Trump just bluffs. You remember when he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man? Didn't he go back and did kumbaya and hug and I love him so much with Kim Jong-un?
Yes.
You know what's unfortunate in all of this is that, excuse me, Kristi Noem, who is the Homeland Security Secretary, is currently in Israel.
Yes.
She is there for Jerusalem Day, which is, festivities for the unification between East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem. They've released some information regarding her meeting. She's had a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and apparently in that meeting, she has passed on the message that the Trump administration appreciates how Netanyahu is handling this war, amidst other things. So it's very tragic, the type of world we live in, because often what we see is hypocrisy. And, excuse me, sorry. I hate to bring race into this, but when you look at the Palestinians, they are darker in color than Ukrainians, for example, or Russians, for example. So you see how we treat a conflict that has lighter-skinned people with kid gloves. And then when it comes to Israel, it's full-on support. Nobody is condemning both sides. It's just, it's almost handled as if there's nothing going on. She's there right now while these terrible images are circulating around the world. Now for Russia and Ukraine. So just to balance the story, there was an attack on Vladimir Putin's helicopter by Ukrainian drones. I believe it was on Friday. Over 200 drones. They said they were able to repel the attack, but they're treating that attack as an attempted assassination. Now, given that, and I know on that same press briefing when they were asking Donald Trump questions, one of the reporters did ask, do you know about the attack on Vladimir Putin? And then Donald Trump said, oh, maybe that's why he's launched this massive attack. But he said he hadn't been briefed on it. Mm-hmm. But what you see is a full-scale war with both sides doing excessively too much to either side. I believe in the past week, Ukraine has launched over 800 kamikaze drones to Russia. Now Russia is attacking civilian sites. It's just an unnecessary bloodbath. And neither side are listening to anybody. Again, like I said, the diplomatic community are playing ostrich with the issue. We'll stop trade or we'll stop this and so forth. But we're not seeing anybody saying we're going to increase sanctions on Russia. We're going to stop giving weapons to Ukraine. Equal treatment of both sides to try and, temper down the situation. What we see is just all these very paper-thin statements on the whole issue, and it's very unfortunate.
Thanks.
Okay. The two subjects are related. Yeah. What you see on both sides is the hypocrisy and the insincerity of the international community, and by extension, the failure of diplomacy. Now, take Ukraine and Russia. Yes. Meetings have been held in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Meetings have been held in Turkey. There was a meeting in London where Kiev was offered a 7 plan. Principal among which Russia was saying that it will hold on to the territories of Ukraine that it currently controls, particularly eastern Ukraine, and generally 20% of Ukrainian territory, and it's not expected to yield that. Now, Ukraine says Article 2 of its constitution does not allow Ukraine to cede territory. So there's a stalemate between both countries. After that last meeting in London and the meeting with the Pope by Zelensky, then we had the phone calls, right?
Yes.
2 hours of conversation last week between President Trump and Putin. On that same day, Zelensky spoke to President Trump twice. Before the phone call to Putin,
Yes.
and then after the phone call to Putin, which was joined by leaders of Germany, France, and also the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And what was the main issue here? The United States was saying, sentiments that have also been re-echoed by Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, that the US will walk away from the negotiations if both countries cannot agree between themselves. And Trump was recommending that the two parties should come together. So now, in spite of all of this, Zelensky said he was not convinced that Putin wants peace. So Zelensky, in a way, has been vindicated that, Russia does not want peace. Russia, Putin himself, Trump himself is now saying, doesn't just want that 20% that is controlling, but that it wants the whole of Ukraine. In other words, America is losing interest in the matter because it has secured its control over the rare materials in Ukraine. 50-50 arrangement that they claim that they have. China having refused to allow the export of raw materials
Yes.
to the United States since December 2024. So this is the whole framework of hypocrisy. Trump can say, I think he's crazy. Every time he opens his mouth, he creates problems. He doesn't really show commitment. In the same manner, Israel and Hamas. America has always made it clear that whatever Israel does is convenient for it. After all, what was the basis of the problem with South Africa? It was because South Africa went to International Court of Justice to sue against Israel. And Israel continues to commit so many atrocities that Britain, France, and other countries in Europe started accusing it of violating international law. This is again a confirmation of how routinely Israel violates international law. Most of the victims, out of the 24 that died in this drone attack, were children, were women. Out of the 54,000 persons that have been killed since the outbreak of hostilities, about 24,000 out of that are women and children, persons that are not directly involved in the conflict. That in itself, under the law of armed conflict, is a violation of international law. But who is going to call Netanyahu to order? Within Israel itself, there are issues. The right wing wants the complete wipeout of Gaza. So Netanyahu says he's under pressure.
Yes.
Two, the families who saw stages, 54 of them, are still in Kiev. It's believed that most of them are still alive. They are putting Netanyahu under pressure. So Netanyahu has to balance the politics between the far right, the centrists, and also the Democrats, who are completely opposed to this violation of international law. I think that the international community should be more sincere in insisting that no country, no leader, whether it is Putin or it is Netanyahu, can be above international law. And the United States should stop pretending. And Putin should just stop talking for talking's sake while protecting, these despots who are violating the international order and rewriting the rules of global complementarity.
Well, thank you all for your submissions. Let's move on to newspaper headlines across Nigeria. Let's start with the front page of This Day. Now, This Day does report on this escalating drama within the People's Democratic Party just hours after Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, pulled out of a peace agreement he had with the PDP, the People's Democratic Party's governors. He declared that he was, and he also declared that he was ready for a fight to the finish. We are seeing that National Secretary of the PDP, Samuel Ayamu, has announced a postponement of the 99th NEC, that's the National Executive Committee meeting, which was scheduled to hold on the 27th of May. Similarly, the New Telegraph also leads with Wike, but this time labelling the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, as the architect of the crisis within the People's Democratic Party. Now, you remember that the two gentlemen used to be very close friends. They have always been referred to as allies, essentially, but now you're seeing Wike accusing Makinde of conniving with other parties' leaders to sabotage agreements reached to resolve the PDP crisis. Meanwhile, on the other side of the political spectrum, we have the Vanguard, and it's reporting on the so-called anti-Tinubu coalition. You have Atiku Abubakar, former vice president, and also Peter Obi, both of them reportedly shopping for another platform. Now, to the Daily Independent, which leads with the news that there have been actually 516 wildlife strikes in 20 Nigerian airports over the past 5 years, just to give a bit more scope to that issue that we were talking a few weeks ago. And The Guardian leads with the report that essentially this 7 trillion naira subsidy saving has failed to really translate into real reprieve when we're addressing this hunger issue within the country. And then finally, just very quickly, if we look at the Daily Sun, there is some good news for Enugu State. Representatives in the state have scored Governor Peter Mba's midterm performance as high.
All right.
Very quickly.
Okay, one sentence each.
I mean, what else can I say? Let the fight begin between the members of the Jackson 5, like Daniel Walla will call them. I'm not sure if he's going to call them that these days. Wiki and Makinde, they can fight all like here.
Very quickly, I think The Guardian, gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm having one of those mornings. Okay. I think The Guardian has been a little bit harsh with regards to the subnationals and subsidies, because in all fairness, they had a lot of debt, and many of them have done significantly in being able to balance out some of their debt. So yes, they failed to cushion on hardship and hunger. However, they've been able to address a lot of the legacy debt that they had in those subnationals.
That's fair. Thank you, Bimbai.
Okay, very quickly, I go back to the Wike story.
Okay.
Wike says he has sacrificed so much for the PDP. Well, and I say that's pretentious. I say that it is misleading. He has benefited even more from the party. I listed the positions that he had occupied under the platform of the party. The big problem with the People's Democratic Party is the lack of internal democracy within the party. How did that party get to a point where one individual will hijack it and also threaten to destroy it if he does not have his way, my way or the highway? The problem is because the PDP has not been able to follow his own constitution and instill discipline. So we're talking about dictatorship, authoritarianism. PDP is facing that same problem. The authoritarianism of one man that they cannot call to order. That is what the PDP should look at. As for all these talks about defeating the APC, I think they've lost it. They've dropped the ball.
Adefemfem, thank you so much. Glad we got to speak on newspapers as well today.